All right, guys, welcome back. Alicia here with Elevate with Alicia and Joey. This is Joey Stone, and I'm super excited to have him as he's been such a really cool, important part of my life over the last 2 years. And I'm gonna let him share a story about all of his challenges, whatever he wants to share, of a lot of overcoming of different things. And I'm super excited, and it makes me think of my father who, my father took his life back in 2019, and I feel like that wouldn't have happened if he had a role model or a place or an understanding of a lot of what Joey here understands of what healing looks like, and especially for a man, and what emotions are and all these things. So Joey, can you just kind of share your story that's so inspiring for so many people? And I'm so excited for people to listen to this because it's just so good. And so I just want you to share whatever you feel in the flow to share about what's possible and where you've been and where you're at now.
Let's do it. Also, thank you. And there goes the camera. Oh my heck.
Oh.
We rolling still?
Hey, we roll through the punches on this podcast. We keep it simple, nothing fancy.
So, isn't life like that? I hope that you leave those cuts in, a little of that thing falling down, because isn't it like that, especially in your recovery journey? So I'm Joey, and Joey Stone. I'm a recovering addict from drugs, alcohol, and pornography addiction, or sex addiction. And I have been addicted to a substance of some kind since literally I was a little kid. I got introduced to porn when I was really, really small, and from family members, and my sister and I were abused, and it just has felt like an uphill battle my entire life. And so it was almost like I was predestined to have these problems, that it sucked me into these worlds. I was a high school dropout in 10th grade. Wow. I ran away from home, and I lived on my own. Since then, I got into, within 2 days of moving out, I had sex for my first time. I tried drugs for my first time. And I started drinking for my first time. And it was great to mask all that pain that I constantly felt.
Probably felt like freedom. Almost,
well,
maybe at the start.
It did. Oh, it totally felt like freedom. It was like, mom and dad in your face. Like, I'm free. You can't. And then reality set in, and legit, all the stories. We're not going to go there. Let's talk about later down the road. So here's what's cool is now, I'm a network and a systems engineer. That's one of my jobs. I've been like an IT executive for a bunch of companies. I was in the Army. I did some special forces training. I wasn't a Green Beret, but man, I was close. Got married instead in the middle of my training.
One day we'll have that story.
Yeah, one day, maybe later. And then I found this company that taught me how to love myself again. And I became a trainer myself, and it like transformed some things. But here's, I remember D-Day, okay? I didn't know what addiction was growing up. Nobody taught me that. I'm 40 years old now. And I actually found out I was an addict 10 years ago. And I was living in Houston with my wife, and I was at a crossroads again in my life where I'd made some really, really bad choices. And I had the choice: walk away from my family, my wife, all the things that brought me true joy and happiness, walk away from God and my religion, or like do the hard work. So my wife drugged me one last time into my bishop's office, my ecclesiastical leader's office. And I sat across from him, and it was the most profound thing ever, because he said to me, he said, "Joey, I can't help you. God can, and I know some people who can." And he sent me to my very first therapy session with an addiction therapist for my very first time. And the lady was sitting there across from me and my wife. My wife came with me, and she's sitting there, and she said, after I described, I'm like, look, I keep going back to porn. I keep having these inappropriate relationships with people, and I don't want it. Like, I don't want it. But I'm broken. I'm destined to go to hell. I'm a piece of garbage. It's just who I am. And I had accepted at that point that I was trash. I had tried to leave my wife multiple times, and she just was fighting for this version of me that she saw. This brilliant, beautiful version of me that she saw, and I couldn't see it. And she would not let go no matter. And so she drugged me in. And so we're talking to this therapist, and she said, "You're an addict." And I was like, "What? What do you mean I'm an addict?" "Well, you're an addict. Everything you just described is addiction." And I was like, "What the hell is addiction?" Like, and some of you out there might be like, "How does he not know addiction?" Well, welcome to my life, okay? Welcome to my world. I didn't know. And I was like, "You're telling me that there's like something to call this? That I'm just like a broken piece of shit that God has discarded on this planet? Like, that I just don't get to come home?" And she was like, "No. I almost just said, you're just fucked up in the head." No, she said, I'm a swearing Mormon, I'm sorry. And she'll probably edit that.
No, we're leaving it.
Sorry, Bishop, if you're watching this. No.
We're being real and raw here.
Yes. And she says, "You're an addict and there's help." And it was the first time in my life that I thought that there could be hope, that there could be something else. I got to take these off.
I was about to say, you're going to
yeah, I can be real and emotional, and that's okay. And so she sent me to this 12-step, and I remember the 12-step program, if you don't know, it freaking works. If you don't know, a God-centered 12-step program works. Without God, there is no hope for recovery. I did argue with me all day. I love you, and I don't care. It's what works. And I go into this 12-step group for my very first time, and it was like at a church, some non-denominational Christian something church, and there's like 8 guys. And I remember clearly, I walked into this room, and all these men are laughing and happy, and I was pissed. I was like, "How dare you be happy? Don't you understand? We're addicts. We can't be happy. This is my D-Day. Like, I'm a piece of trash. How could you?"
Let me be not happy.
Yeah, let me be unhappy. And I could not comprehend that these men that have the same problem that I do are laughing and they're happy. And about 3 weeks later, 5 weeks later, as I'm beginning to work the steps and I'm beginning to find God again in my life and put him at the center, not my wife at the center, not my job or being enough or doing all the things in the world so that I am enough, but putting God at my center and accepting my faults as a pathway to peace and accepting his love as the pathway to peace. All of a sudden, I was the guy laughing and cracking jokes with people and being able to feel again. I actually
imagine what that felt like.
Yeah.
After your traumatic life.
It was crazy. It didn't make sense. Everything up to that point in my life has taught me to push all my emotions away. I'm a man. In fact, growing up, if I had emotions, I was called a pussy or a faggot. And I'll tell you one thing about being in the Army. Me and the Army don't get along at all. Like, I love people. Like, I love people so freaking much. And my desire to love and care for people is at odds with everything that I learned. I had to unprogram like all of that. Like the dehumanization to be able to. Anyway, so my wife and I, within a few months, moved to Utah. Total miracle story, totally a different story. Maybe we'll record it. Maybe it'll be on my YouTube. I don't know.
Yep.
But we head to Utah, which, by the way, Utah is literally like the mecca of counseling and addiction recovery. It's
Which is
actually,
crazy.
it's literally the mecca, the center of addiction recovery. You can look that up. And we get here and we get this counselor, and I'm going to be a little more brief on this, but he gives me this little document, this check-in document. And the first 3 questions, the first one was, in this moment, what do you feel physically in this moment? And I remember early on in my recovery journey, my wife and I would ask each other these questions, and she was like, what are you feeling physically in this moment? And I was so numbed out, and so completely numbed out from 30 years of addiction. I would like, and I'm not exaggerating, I would like look down and then I would just punch myself somewhere, and I'd be like, I feel something right there. And she'd be like, you're so weird. And I'm like, you married me. And so
That's funny.
then I could feel, and at the very beginning of learning to heal with God, the second question was, in this moment, what emotions are you feeling? And back then, I could feel mad, sad, or nothing.
Wow.
Almost.
Mad, sad, or nothing.
Mad,
Ooh.
sad, or nothing. And I didn't believe that people could be happy.
Because you never felt it.
I never felt it, not for longer than a few minutes, not for longer than, and it's not the fleeting sexual happiness, it's not the orgasm, that's not happiness. That doesn't bring a lasting,
temporary.
And that is a byproduct of connection, and it builds momentum into a connected relationship with your spouse or whatever, and yes.
So would you say that, because I've talked about this a little bit, and I've noticed this, sometimes we cross the line and think love is just like this deep sexual connection, but when sexual intimacy and intimacy are two different things, what we're truly looking for is connection that we've never felt. And oftentimes we place connection with, well, I'm just going to feel loved, I'm going to go have sex or something else. And that becomes a big deal with everything.
Yeah, well, and it becomes the center.
Yeah, it becomes a center, because now you're stuck in that place too of like, well, this feels good, and I feel like there's a connection, but I feel like it's a deceiving
You get to bypass
connection.
I think the phrase we use in
or whatever the word is for
kind
that.
of addiction recovery is, we use the phrase that we as addicts were looking for the magic that bypassed true intimacy.
Yes.
I've got this explosive relationship with someone for a couple of months, and then it goes boom,
right? It's like
and then you
flame.
run to the next person.
You're like, let's go to the next flame.
And it's like, look at this connection we have. We did it 43 times yesterday, And it's like, wow, that's great. And like 2 months later, you're with a new person. And it's like, what happened to 43, man? And it's like, because that's not connection.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. And
I'm glad that you're just pointing that out.
And what I have found out in my life, and I'll speak for me because I don't speak for anyone else, but I'll speak for me. I found out that sex is optional. And that is terrifying for some people. And so if you're terrified right now that sex is optional, and you're like holding the steering wheel like, motherfucker, just said sex is optional. But it is. And as a person who didn't believe that was true, and I thought I would die, it's some messed up pathways in my brain. And through God, and through putting Him at my center, and through going through the crap to get rid of the problems.
Sexual chains are crazy.
Oh, dude.
Sexual chain. I can even speak for Anna right now because she wouldn't care. And I know, like, we talked about this the other day, like even 8-10 months ago, when I told her that like she could go without sex, like she would have not believed me. And now she's like 10 months free, and she's like, I am not having sex so I get married, because I understand the consequence and the bind that I do not want to have. And it's so cool because we don't know what's possible until we take that first shoot your shot of faith. And then everything becomes more clear and able, but you can't see it until you take action.
That's actually another phrase that I live by, is take the action and the feeling will follow. Because so many times we're waiting for the motivation, or we're waiting for the happy feeling, or we're waiting for the spirit, or we're waiting
for God, like step in
and make me whole, as you hold as tight as you can to your addiction.
Like, but I don't want to let go.
This is my porn magazine.
Or I don't want to detach from this person. I don't want to let go of this. There's no way this is possible.
And he's like, okay, hold on as long as you want, and I'm right here. But take the action and the feeling will follow. It's been that way. It's me coming out here with you today to have this conversation. I'll tell you this, I run a personal development retreat, and I get looked at as someone who, is inspiring and all of these other things. And I can't tell you the amount of shame and guilt and pain that I feel when I have a slip in my addiction or I have a relapse in my addiction. Because what's real is I'm actually just a human trying to do my best. And I won't be fake. And so I struggle still. And I had years of sobriety, and over the last year, I lost my center with God, and I fell back into pornography a couple of times. And the consequence of that for me is an actual me cutting myself off from God. He's always there, but I've cut myself off for moments or for days.
And that's what I've even noticed. Or anybody I've been coaching right now, it's usually because that disconnect from God. Like right now he's so loud with people calling us to go deeper with him and trust him more. And everybody's like, but I don't have the money, or I don't have this, or I don't have that. But everybody's like freaking about those things. And God's like, can you just trust me? I have a bigger plan. We're going places. But when we stop trusting him, then we do go to all those things that are comfortable, whether it's like sex or weed or sweets or this or anything that's comfortable, when he can actually provide that comfort and that intimacy that we're truly looking for. But when we hide and dodge because we made a mistake or we just don't trust him, that's where we start going the other way.
And
for myself, that's what I've noticed.
Well, and it is.
Or anybody else that I've helped.
I have no idea what I was going to say.
Sorry.
No,
but it is
I
just
like
so,
what you said.
I'm just saying it's so beautiful, because as I've been on this journey, this is also a thing that I've been helping a lot of people I've been coaching. I always try to ask the question, what are you avoiding? Because usually we're looking for an answer, and he's already given us a step, but we don't want to look at that step because it's scary. So we're like, wait, but I'm looking for something else that's not as scary. But he's like, hey, if you'll just take this step right here, then I can give you more steps. But I need you to take this one. I promise if you'll face this fear of whatever it is, everything you want is beyond that shot, that scary shot. And that's usually what most people are afraid of right now. And they're looking for answers anywhere else but what's right in front of them. Mm-hmm. And so the more I've been doing that, even on social media, it's like, God's like, can you please share this story? Can you please do this? And even though I have a lot of people that don't understand what I'm doing, or some people that are maybe angry at what I'm sharing, I know I'm showing up for the people that actually just need to hear it, and for God, for the work that he wants me to do. And the more I do that, it's like the more power and faith just continues to grow within me. And it's like an unstoppable force that I just cannot deny. So
I love that. I love it. I want to step back from, with you and your audience, I want to step back from the word addiction for a moment too, because most people don't identify with that.
Yeah.
That most people don't actually recognize the patterns of addiction, whether you are an addict or not, or whether you know what that actually means. And realistically, addiction, or from my understanding, the best way I know to describe it, if you're using something in a way it wasn't intended to cover your emotional pain, that is an addictive behavior. If you're using sex, or if you're using alcohol or drugs or relationships or food or TV or social media in order to cover emotional pain and hurt and trauma and sadness and all of these other things, none of those were intended to cover that.
Yeah.
What was intended to cover that was an expression of the crap to get it out so it does not control you anymore. Catharsis or conversations or whatever method you use to get it out of your body, those are methods to get it out, not the drug. The drug is kind of your brain's way of your brain. Our brains build. Okay, for all of you that are like scholars, so let me just like caveat this for a second. And
people are judging you right now.
Yeah, all the judgment. I love you. And here's the best way I know to explain it. Our brains, especially when we're really young, are incredibly elastic. They create neural pathways, and these neural pathways are created of doing patterns over time. And one of the ways that I created pathways in my brain was viewing pornography. When I had a hard day, pornography. When I had sadness, pornography. When my dad beat me, pornography. When dad didn't show up, pornography. And that meant masturbation. And those became my way of avoiding pain. And so when my body goes to pain emotionally or physically, I've experienced this physically, and I won't tell that story here. Physical pain, it went straight to, you need to relieve your pain. You need to get into some porn or some drugs or some alcohol immediately. And masturbation, you got to do both of those right away or you're going to die. And over the years, the grooves became massive. I'll tell you this, most people don't realize that the opposite of addiction is connection. Most people think that the opposite of addiction is sobriety, and that if you're sober, that means you're not an addict anymore, and you can be a total dry drunk. I know people who quit drinking and are total assholes. That's not sobriety. Like I don't care if you stop drinking. If you're an asshole and live in resentment is the underlying cause of addiction in the first place. Shame is the underlying cause. Trauma is one of the underlying causes that causes the shame and the pain and the hurt. And when you turn it over to God, dang, I lost my train of thought a little bit.
It's okay, but I agree with when you turn anything over to God. I wanted to point in and say, I feel like oftentimes, because I deal a lot with attachment styles, and I feel like they're so close to addiction, because I come from an addict. Like my dad was, again, he died of suicide, but it's like he was so out of alignment his whole life, and he had all these other addictions to a point where he didn't even have his own agency, and he just had to leave because it was too much. And so when I see some of my own patterns of codependency, and that's a form of addiction, or my attachment styles, I would attach to people because I didn't know God or trusted him to be that. I see a lot of people, it's like, well, I believe in God, but there's a difference with believing and actually trusting him and allowing him to fill those gaps to where you no longer, like I used to attach to anybody that I just was like, oh my gosh, like, but they were actually mirroring a ton of characteristics that I just wanted within me that I didn't realize that I had. I didn't know my own power. And so, but I feel like I was also addicted to the chaos of life, the chase, the chaos, the patterns of like people that just would reject me, because that was also what was running in the background.
Well, and it fueled the resentment, which fueled the addiction, which fueled the relationships, which fueled the rejection, which fueled and that is the addictive cycle. It's the crazy. I want to say, you said, oh, go ahead.
And I want you to finish that too, but my point is like, it's crazy that everybody's been asking me lately, like, what have you done, Alicia? And first of all, I've done a ton of deep stuff. I've been to his training. I hired a private mentor. I've done so many things, but I will say it truly is God, because I did one session of therapy in my life. I remember I got on a phone with a therapist and they said some stuff, but I listened to my intuition. I was like, I don't know if that's for me. And because God was actually leading me to work with a mentor that was God-centered. And I realized, holy crap, this is God's work. Like therapy, cool. If you want to do therapy, that's cool. I'm not saying don't do it. But for me, when people are asking all the work that I've done and where I come from a crazy life myself, and we all have our different craziness, I didn't have therapy, and the work was done with guides, mentors that were God-centered, and then truly learning how to trust God myself and going to the depths and facing all the fears and any kind of emotion that was in the way of me fully aligning my heart space with God and trusting him. And I can't deny that secret sauce is a real formula, and it's scary and it's hard and people don't want to go there because you got to look at stuff and it's painful. But once you go through the darkness, it's like, it doesn't hold you back anymore.
I love that. You said something and it sparked this thought in me. You said that there's tons of people who believe in God, and I was reminded of this phrase, but they don't believe him and his promises. And the other piece of that was, I can believe in forgiveness, and if I don't forgive as part of my life, I don't forgive others and forgive myself, then believing in it is absolutely like a waste of time. that's a waste of time, or it's pointless. I don't know.
But it doesn't if
give
you don't
the
forgive,
benefit.
yeah, you don't feel the power of it. Because I see people all the time,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I go to church and I have faith and I have this, but they never think that their faith to overcome their own challenges is part of the equation. They're like, oh, that can't be a miracle for me getting off my meds or my mental illness or my disability or my whatever. But I can only say that now because I'm like, dude, I don't take meds and I don't feel like I need to because of XYZ, and I'll have a whole episode on that. And even we've talked about the same-sex attraction, and it's not that maybe that's not really there. That's not the point anymore. The intimacy in Christ and God that I have felt so deeply was actually what has restored and made the difference. I'm like, whoa, I want that. And anything else, anybody else that is going to complement my life, that comes into my life. And I've learned to trust the masculine power and what masculinity truly is and how that's been kind of corrupt in the past. And so a lot of women I see have an issue with that, and men as well. But it's like when we can heal that, hey, my heavenly father is nothing like my actual earthly father. And I love my dad, but he didn't know how to show up for his own reasons. And again, it's not about him, it's about me and how I showed up. But when I learned to trust him and the power of miracles and having faith, like so much happens in my life. And so if you truly believe in God, but you haven't learned to trust him yet, like, and you have your body's trying to be very loud with you, he has messages and he's just asking you to trust him. And it's the coolest adventure you could be on, because you seriously have to shoot your shot first. You have to take action first to see the miracles and things fall into place.
It's like,
cool.
If you think that the trials are going to stop if you ignore them.
I know, they only get worse.
It's like, bro, just lean in. Trust me. Trust her. Lean in instead and go straight at it so that you can come through the other side, that version of you that he sees that you don't see right now. Because that's the piece I've been fighting for the last 2 months. She knows I've been fighting so hard against it. And I've been and it's been dark and it's been hard and it has felt like grinding my bones rather than the joy and the peace that can come from just leaning back into God. And it's funny,
and that's because you're also fighting those demons. Like, if you believe in God, you have to believe that the enemy's real too. And I can't deny he's real, because I played in all of his fire in his games.
Same.
He's real, and he doesn't want you to step into your highest potential because he knows how powerful that is and how magical it is. Like, people want to believe in magic. Christ is magic.
I want to talk to a totally different topic.
Sorry. Okay, we're going here
just
now.
For a second, I want to address what I'm certain is going to be a lot of people who've been hurt by their spouse, often by men who've been unfaithful, and now it's almost as often as and common women doing the same thing.
Yep.
And here's what. It's the craziest thing, but when I find a couple that is ready to start their healing journey, that they decide, you know what, you've been unfaithful, or I've been unfaithful, or whatever, and they own it, like really own it, which I don't recommend you doing without like a qualified therapist. If you really cheated, like, get a script, because you're going to freaking screw it up and really make it worse. And if you choose to work it out, there's hope. One of my favorite things to say to new couples who, not newlyweds, new couples who come into the addiction and recovery world is, welcome to the best, worst club in the world.
Ooh, wow.
The best, worst club in the world. And it's because what's at the other side of the healing journey is a connection with your spouse that couldn't even have been possible.
That's super cool.
And I want to be cautious to say it that way, but that's what we've experienced. I'll speak for me and my wife, and she could say her own piece, but we both say that phrase, welcome to the best, worst club, or the worst, best club in the world. Because what's at the other side of choosing God and what's at the other side of recovery and choosing to go through the hardest things is an equal measure of love and peace and acceptance and joy and connection and healing and light and life. As dark as it is, it's brighter.
I love that.
And that's my experience
I love that. I can't
Over
even
and over.
speak to that, but just as a single person, again, I've never learned how to receive love or intimacy and what that actually felt like, because I was always chasing it and it was different and it was always something else. And so learning how to receive, I've learned, is one of the hardest things people actually don't know how to do. Receiving.
Yes.
Like the right way.
Oh, heck.
It's so hard.
That's why it's such a
But
huge
it's beautiful when you do.
focus in Refined You, is because it's like,
Receiving
you can't
so
receive.
big. Yeah.
I'm
But
the
more I've
trainer and
learned-
I don't know how to receive, okay?
Still learning, but
It's so
the more
hard.
I've learned how to receive with God, that's where I've learned, like, the more healing I've done, when the right person steps into my life, it's going to be so complementary, and it's just the giving and receiving cycle together.
No, I've watched you grow though. Like, they don't have a context of you, and I know there's other people that are close to you in your life that even have more context than I do, but like,
Not as much as you, though. Well, you and Anna probably.
it's probably Anna and I, and the level of grit and determination and heart that you've shown up in, and your desire that I won't care anymore. Not that I don't care, but now I'm choosing, because I won't versus I don't is a choice between it can still hurt and I'm going anyways. I'm so all in because you believe, at least my experience of you is that you believe that everyone deserves an opportunity to heal. And
100%.
that's so freaking rare. And I've watched you
possible.
grow. Yeah, and that it's actually and you're embodying that it's possible.
Like 2
And
years
I'm
ago.
so proud of you.
Thanks, Joey.
It's an honor for me to be even with you at all and have these conversations, because woo!
Keep going.
That's it. I know. I'm like, I don't have words though. How do you describe it when the words transcend our world? Like, I don't have English. English doesn't have the ability to describe the woman of light that chose God, and there's a lot of people, I know that you have people making comments that it's like, you did and it's like, I'm sorry you're offended, and there is peace at the other side, even though it's hard. And I'm sorry for all of you out there that are still struggling, because I care. I don't know you, and I care. And yeah, I'm a straight white guy, and so how could I ever have any kind of connection with a lesbian community or whatever else, and all these people? And it's like, why we're all suffering in the same world together.
And I truly believe that we all have a challenge for a reason, so that we will connect with God. And I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to, like, he's been such a big part of this. I'll have to go into that one day. And I'm so grateful that he showed up as a safe man that I haven't witnessed before. So he was part of me learning how to trust men again, and to see him share his heart that a lot of men won't do. I've always run into men, and I think even connecting with women was so more magical, because oftentimes they will express and they'll connect emotionally, and they have like a different connection to the eternal, I think, than men do sometimes. But so many men, and I realize my own spiritual gifts, it's because I could tell that they're just so cut off from God, and I'm looking for somebody that's connected to God. And so when I understand how that kind of fold works, of why even a man is, if God's really put a man in a household, it was actually to protect and to provide, and to, help serve the family, to help them feel safe. And when that's kind of come lopsided from years and generational stuff, I can see why so many people are freaking out and going this way and that way, and the trust and there's so much to it. But the more I remember when I was guided to do the work, and I was just ready, and I even asked for it before it happened. And I read some scriptures the other day talking about seek, like, that the pearl of great price is beyond anything you could ever want. And I realized when I read that, I was like, that is exactly, like, I paid as much, like, almost for a Tesla for the personal development, so that I would not look back, so that I would keep going no matter how hard it got, that I wouldn't look back, because I wanted that pearl of great price before anything else. And that was the deepest desire in my heart. That was beyond, and I had no idea what this journey was going to look like. And to this day, I would still choose it, because what I feel internally is what I realize most are looking for. And And so it just shows that it's possible. And if you are truly seeking for change, it's possible, but you have to be willing to give up old ways and patterns and chaos and things that you're used to for something that's just higher vibrational, and that's it. But
God.
And God, and if with God, that's it. It's the vibration, it's the frequency, because his frequency is so much higher in that light. And yeah, I want to give that up for something else, because like there's really nothing in this world that matters more. Because once you start to see different, you're like, okay, I literally could die tomorrow. So why don't I just get myself right with God and just put him first before anything else? That truly is the epitome of like letting go of any kind of addiction or attachment, because now that's what freedom is, because I fully am in connection with him, and he's guiding me, he's providing for me. And that's the shirt that I first got when I had the broken heart. It's like, where God guides, he provides. And he's shown up for these 2 years, even though it's been wild, but it's been crazy.
I see the world in like vivid imagery and pictures and videos and all this stuff. And as you described what you said, all I could see is this massive banquet of food, like this massive table filled with food. And this is like the life that we could have down here if we'll dive into the, some of these prescribed ways of choosing God and putting God first. And so many of us are settling for the little side table that has saltine crackers and water.
It's so true.
And it's like,
and grinding for it.
And grinding And then I love saltine crackers and I love water. And the other table's like right there.
That's the receiving.
It's
learning how to receive is over there.
I don't know. It's just my brain. I see these images, and that's what I saw. Is
cool
like
gift.
Scurrying over to eat the crackers when like the huge banquet. It's like, oh, and
I love it.
I also love to be fair to the people who have been hurt, who have been hurt by religion.
Yep,
and who have been hurt by people, or those people who have been feel incredibly neglected by God because of the hardship of this world.
Yep.
I can't imagine what you're going through, and I'm so sorry for your pain. And it's just not the God I prescribe to. It's not for me. The purpose of this life has become to learn to love and to be loved, to give and to receive, and to hope and to dream, and to say sorry and to receive sorry. And when I remember God, it becomes easy. It becomes easy.
I agree with that.
And then I'm eating the turkey legs.
My last comment I do want to make before we jump off, because this is probably long already, but it's a good one, is the fact of no matter how much spiritual awakening and eyes that you do have, this is where I try to bridge the gap of like, hey, I'm just trying to help people say there's more. There is a big feast. There is more if you want it. But for the other people that try to judge other people's lifestyles instead of just hating on them and not understanding their, like, you have no idea what goes on behind doors in people's lives. And oftentimes we're just judging the symptoms of so much other stuff. And for me, it's like Jesus was always rebuking the religious that just tried to judge these people and shame and this and that. And with the other people, it's kind of like he just met them where they're at, and he tried to invite, he tried to love. And when they're ready, you have to let people have their process. We came here to life to have our process. So don't rob people of their process, and just be the example of what you want people to be by doing your own work. And people will take note of your changes. And when they're ready and they want to elevate a little bit higher, they will come to you. But they're not going to come to you if you just sat there and shamed them, like, I can't believe you're doing this and blah, 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 blah. Because that just shows, one, you're not even tapped in yourself. Two, like, we're supposed to lead from love and an example. So I do have to make that distinction, because even though I see a higher way and I've lived it and it's beautiful here, I understand what it's like to be stuck in not understanding the higher level. And I'm grateful I wasn't robbed of my process until I was ready to do my own work.
I know what it feels like to be deemed a sinner.
Exactly. So, hey, we're all sinners, but let us do our work when we're ready.
But guess what? Christ sat with sinners. That's who
did.
we hung out with.
He did. And he is also coming soon. So there's that too. And I truly believe that. I feel it.
Wish it would be. Dang it.
I feel him. Hey, I think my personal opinion, he's going to start showing up in people first. And he's going to be here. And if you want to get to know him, you can have such a deep intimacy.
Can I make a challenge?
Yeah.
To the group?
Yes.
Okay.
Make a challenge.
If you're watching, this is a challenge. If you left a religion, or if you walked away from a belief in God at some point in your life, try again. Take 5 minutes and try again. Whatever it is. Like I'm not pitching a religion here. No. Just
see if there's a higher power.
Who knows?
Who freaking knows? Shoot your shot. See, what do you have to lose to shoot, right? Boom! Thank you, Joey. You're amazing, and I hope that you come back again. You're gonna see him again.
I'm a hugger, okay?
Okay, bring it in! Bring it in! He almost tackled me.
That's funny.
Woo! Let's go! Shoot your shot!
Get it.